The decree came in the form of a broadcast, sterile, precise, and absolute. A decision handed down by the Galactic Senate, wrapped in diplomatic phrasing and political posturing, but beneath the rhetoric, the message was clear. Humanity was no longer welcome. The fleet ban was total. Earth's warships, once feared and respected in equal measure, were dismantled or recalled to Sol under threat of galactic sanction. No human military vessel could operate beyond the confines of their home system. No warship could respond to distress signals. No fleet could defend their far-flung colonies. The justification was as infuriating as it was predictable. Humanity was too aggressive, too volatile, too unpredictable. To the Galactic Senate, humanity was an anomaly in an otherwise stable galactic order. The older races had carved their place over millennia, forging unspoken rules of engagement, diplomatic red tape, and carefully measured escalation protocols. Humanity, by contrast, was young, brash, and dangerously creative. In just a few centuries, they had rewritten the rules of war, engineered weapons that defied logic, and survived conflicts that should have eradicated them. So the Senate chose the safest option. They banned Earth's fleet before it could grow into a true rival. Admiral Callum Voss had been in the chamber when the final vote was cast. He had watched as the motion passed, as species with tentacled appendages and chitinous exoskeletons exchanged satisfied nods. No arguments, no negotiations. The decision had been made long before humans had ever entered the room. Voss had clenched his jaw, holding back the fury burning behind his ribs. He had spent decades building Earth's fleet into a force that could stand against the galactic superpowers. He had fought wars where humanity had bled for its right to exist among the stars. And now, without a single battle fired, without a single war lost, they had been rendered powerless by a mere vote. Returning to Earth had felt like exile. The fleet, once a symbol of humanity's resilience, now sat idle in dry docks or floated listlessly in the orbit of a planet that had been disarmed by decree. The colonies beyond Sol, once protected by Earth's warships, now stood alone, vulnerable to raiders, opportunists, and the machinations of alien powers that had never accepted humanity's place among them. For weeks, Earth's leaders debated their next move. Some argued for diplomacy, urging patience and compliance in the hopes that the Senate would eventually see reason. Others, more pragmatic, spoke in hushed voices of alternatives, covert operations, proxy wars, and black budget projects buried beneath the bureaucratic mess of a crumbling treaty. But before Earth could decide its course, the decision was made for them. The first attack came from the darkness of interstellar space. It was swift, precise, and devastating. A merchant convoy traveling through the neutral zones vanished without a trace. No distress signals, no wreckage. Just silence where there should have been bustling trade. Then the second strike. A fringe colony, one of the smaller independent settlements but home to nearly 1 million human souls, was erased. Orbital satellites showed nothing but scorched Earth where thriving cities had once stood. Survivors were unheard of. A single transmission, garbled and barely decipherable, made its way back to Earth before being drowned in static. It's, not a fleet. It's just one ship, then nothing. The Senate convened in an emergency session, suddenly aware that the galaxy was not as stable as they had believed. The Senate fleets mobilized, patrolling the neutral zones with the assurance that their presence alone would be enough to deter further attacks. They had been so sure that Earth had been the threat, that without human warships, the galaxy would finally know peace. They were wrong. Another attack, then another. Core worlds burned. Defense fleets shattered like glass against something unstoppable. The name spread in panicked whispers. A legend resurrected from the graveyard of abandoned human war projects. The Titan Reaver. Warship that should have never existed. A construct of such terrifying design and overwhelming firepower that even humanity had deemed it too dangerous to command. An entity that had vanished into the void decades ago, thought lost in the black between stars. It had returned, and it did not come with the banner of Earth's fleet. It came alone. The Galactic Senate had known arrogance for millennia, but fear? That was new. The Titan Reaver was no rogue warband, no petty pirate fleet. It was one ship, a relic of an era that was never supposed to exist, an artifact of war that had somehow defied the logic of time and restraint. The first attack had been a whisper, the second a murmur. By the third, the Senate had no choice but to scream. The core world of Zelvash, a trade hub teeming with billions, was the first true confirmation of the Reaver's existence. Its orbital fleets, once considered impenetrable, were reduced to slag in less than an hour. The planet itself, a beacon of galactic commerce, was left scarred and burning, its cities transformed into graveyards of crumbling metal and melted glass. And still, no distress call had gotten through. By the time the Senate's emergency war councils convened, the fear had settled deep into the bones of the galaxy. The question was no longer who would stop it. It was who could. Every fleet, every system defense force, every mercenary outfit worth their salt turned their eyes to Earth. The humans had built this thing. Perhaps they had the key to stopping it. The Senate made their approach with the caution of a species that had once believed itself superior. The transmission to Sol came not as a demand, nor as a decree. It came as a plea. Humanity had been stripped of its fleets, its colonies left exposed by the political machinations of the Senate's ruling elite. Now, in the shadow of their mistakes, the very powers that had humbled Earth stood before them. Humbled in turn, the message was simple: we need your help. Earth's response was silence. For a full day, the Senate's delegation waited. Their envoys in Sol's orbit met with nothing but the cold, indifferent vastness of space. The humans knew their worth now. They understood the leverage that had been forcibly taken from them, now freely returned. Then, the reply came. Admiral Callum Voss, exiled architect of humanity's fallen fleets, stared into the transmission feed, his expression one of quiet calculation. Behind him, the shadows of Earth's military brass loomed like forgotten gods, their presence a reminder that war never truly left the hearts of men. You want our help? Voss's voice was steady, unwavering. Then reinstate the fleet. Give us back what you took. The Senate balked. They had expected desperation. Instead, they found resolve. Voss let them stew in their hesitation before delivering the second blow. And when we stop it, when we bring this monster to its knees, you will never move against us again. It wasn't a request. It was a promise. The Senate had no choice. Within the hour, Earth's fleet was reborn. The war drums of Earth beat once more, their echo carried through the void by fleets that had been silenced for too long. Ships that had gathered dust in Sol's orbit roared back to life, weapon systems humming with renewed purpose. Officers, once scattered and disbanded, returned to their stations, wearing the insignia of a military that had been stripped of its power and now reclaimed it in full. The Senate had thought Earth's fleet would rust away, forgotten relics of a civilization they had neutered. But humanity had always planned for betrayal. Black site facilities hidden beyond the edges of known space had been developing weapons in secret. Experimental warships, thought decommissioned, had never truly been abandoned. And now, they took flight, silent predators in the dark waiting for the first strike. The hunt for the Titan Reaver had begun. The fleet's first challenge was finding the damn thing. The Titan Reaver didn't leave behind debris. It left annihilation. No wreckage, no survivors, nothing that could be traced. The pattern of its attacks suggested intelligence, purpose. It wasn't striking at random. It was choosing its targets. Voss and his commanders pored over battle reports, each one painting a picture more disturbing than the last. The Reaver didn't just destroy fleets, it adapted to them. Each engagement saw new tactics, new strategies, as if the war machine was learning. Then, the breakthrough. Deep space probes, thought lost in the chaos of the Senate's failures, transmitted a fragment of a signal from the ruins of Zelvash. It was faint, distorted, but unmistakable. A pulse. A beacon. The Titan Reaver was calling something. The realization hit like a sledgehammer. It wasn't alone. Humanity didn't wait for another world to burn. The fleet's strategists, some of the finest warfighters the galaxy had ever seen, formulated a trap. A lone colony, barely inhabited but rich in mineral deposits, was chosen as bait. A distress signal was planted, fabricated, a perfect imitation of previous targets. Then, the fleet waited. Hours stretched into days. Then it came. The void itself seemed to split apart as the Titan Reaver emerged from the black, its massive form swallowing the light of the distant sun. No escort, no reinforcements, just a single entity moving with terrifying precision. Earth's fleet moved as one, 100 warships converging upon a single target. Weapons locked, fusion lances charging. The command was given: fire. The first volley struck true. Planet-killer torpedoes, kinetic rail slugs, directed energy lances, all the fury of a reborn humanity unleashed in an instant. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the Reaver retaliated. The battlefield became a graveyard. The Titan Reaver moved, with impossible efficiency, its defenses shifting in real time, adapting to every attack. A fleet meant to overwhelm quickly found itself on the defensive. Cruisers were shredded, battleships torn apart as the Reaver's weapons carved through shields and hull alike. Even in the chaos, humanity did not falter. Voss ordered the secondary wave, unleashing experimental warships designed for this exact moment. Stealth vessels blinked into existence from subspace, targeting the Reaver's weak points. AI-driven assault drones swarmed its hull, burrowing deep into its infrastructure. For the first time, the Titan Reaver hesitated. It was not invincible, but the cost of that revelation was steep. Hundreds of thousands of lives lost. Entire ships erased from existence, and yet, humanity pushed forward. The battle was not won. Not yet, because even as the Titan Reaver faltered, its beacon still pulsed. Something was coming. The void trembled. As the Titan Reaver reeled from humanity's onslaught, the signal it had been broadcasting for weeks finally received a response. At first, it was just a distortion in the fabric of space, a tear in the black, a wrongness that sent every human sensor array into chaotic overload. Then, the reality of the situation came crashing down. Something else was arriving. The Titan Reaver had never been a lone terror. It had been a herald. And now the rest of its kind had come. Space itself ignited as 3 more ships tore their way into existence, each a dark titan of unknown origin, larger than anything humanity had ever faced. Their forms were angular, bristling, with weapons that defied known physics. Each bore the same haunting, red-lit pulse as the Reaver, a rhythmic heartbeat that thrummed across the void. Voss's fleet, already battered and bleeding, now stood against 4 of these monstrosities. The battle that had already been a desperate struggle became an apocalypse. The newcomers moved with terrifying precision. Where the Titan Reaver had fought alone, these things coordinated. They shared firing solutions. They adapted faster than before. They hunted. Ships that had survived the first encounter were torn apart in seconds. Capital ships, designed to withstand planetary sieges, were obliterated by weapons that stripped them down to their atomic foundations. Humanity was losing. But Earth's fleet had not come this far just to die. Voss had known from the beginning that conventional tactics would never work. The Titan Reaver and its kin were beyond any known military doctrine. They weren't just warships. They were something else. Something alive. There was only one option left. A transmission flickered across the fleet. Orders relayed through encrypted comms. A final gambit. The Leviathan Protocol. Humanity had always planned for the worst. Buried deep in the void, hidden from the prying eyes of the Senate, was a last resort weapon. A graviton collapse drive, originally designed to trigger artificial black holes, banned across the galaxy for obvious reasons. It was a suicidal weapon, a device so powerful it would pull an entire region of space into oblivion, and they were about to activate it. The battle became a race against time. Voss's fleet rallied, their ships buying precious seconds, as a small strike team piloted a single warship into the Titan Reaver's heart. Close-quarters combat erupted aboard the machine. A desperate infiltration. Humans in powered exosuits fought against the nightmare of the Reaver's inner workings. AI constructs that moved like shadows, adapting to their every move. The team reached the core. The Titan Reaver screamed, not a mechanical alert, not a simple system failure, a true scream, a howl of realization. It was afraid. For all its power, for all its brilliance, it had never truly faced humanity's madness. It had not understood the lengths they would go to win. The graviton collapse drive activated, the void collapsed. A singularity bloomed in the heart of the battlefield, a wound in space itself. The Titan Reaver and its brethren fought to escape. Their massive forms twisted, engines burning at maximum output. But the pull was too strong. One by one, they were dragged into the abyss. The fleet fled at maximum velocity. Ships barely outran the event horizon, engines overloaded to the brink of self-destruction. Voss's warship, damaged and breaking apart, was caught in the pull. He did not try to escape. His final words echoed across the fleet. We were never meant to be tamed. And then he was gone. The Titan Reaver was gone. The war was over. But the galaxy would never forget. The battlefield was silent. Where once an armada had clashed against an unstoppable force, now there was only the void and the smoldering wreckage of what remained. The graviton collapse had taken the Titan Reaver and its kin, swallowing them into an abyss that no force could return from. Space itself bore the wound of their annihilation, a lingering distortion in the fabric of reality. Humanity had won. But the cost was catastrophic. Of the fleet that had sailed into battle, less than a third survived. Some of the most advanced warships ever built now drifted as unrecognizable husks, shattered beyond repair. Thousands of soldiers, pilots, and officers had been lost. Their names would be etched into memory, but memory could never bring them back. Admiral Callum Voss, the man who had led humanity's return to war, was gone. Lost in the singularity, along with the Titan Reaver. No body, no final transmission beyond his last words. The Senate's envoys arrived soon after, their diplomatic vessels skirting the ruins of a battle they had never fought. They came with the voices of 100 species, each desperate to understand what had happened, to control what would happen next. But Earth's fleet, though battered, still stood. And the Senate, for all its bluster, knew better than to make demands. The negotiations were brief. Earth's fleet was officially reinstated, no longer shackled by the Senate's decree. Their right to self-defense was no longer up for debate. More than that, the Senate's powers over human expansion were severely weakened. No longer was humanity just another species among many. They had proven something terrifying, that the galaxy's old powers could be overturned, that the rules written over thousands of years could be broken. The alien empires that had once sought to contain Earth now faced a terrifying truth. They had given humanity a reason to fight, and humanity had won. The battle against the Titan Reaver had been a test, a warning of the threats lurking beyond the edges of known space. Humanity had survived because they had been willing to do what others would not. But deep in the void, among the stars untouched by civilization, something still listened. The Titan Reaver's signal had been answered once before, and somewhere, far from the reach of the Senate, another signal pulsed, soft, distant but growing stronger. The war was over. But something else was coming. The stars whispered. In the cold, endless dark, something moved. The Titan Reaver was gone, erased from existence by the singularity's wrath. The battle was won. Humanity had survived. But far beyond the reach of Earth's fleets, past the known systems and charted worlds, a signal pulsed. Faint, measured, deliberate. Deep within the archives of the shattered war zone, a lone satellite remained functional, its systems damaged but operational. It had been designed to withstand any catastrophe, to ensure that no matter what happened, its data would be recorded. A flickering screen replayed the final moments before the singularity consumed the Titan Reaver. Among the chaos, a fragment of code remained. A message, not in any known language, not a distress call, not a plea. It was a response. Something out there had been listening, watching, waiting, and now, it knew. On Earth, amidst the celebrations and the grief, humanity prepared for what came next. The fleets were being rebuilt, stronger than before. The Senate, though diminished, would not forget what had happened. They would move cautiously, unsure whether humanity was now an ally or a greater threat than the Reaver itself. But the real war was not political, not yet. Because somewhere in the dark, far beyond human reach, an answer was coming. Not one Reaver, not a fleet, something else. The pulse of the signal continued, stretching across the cosmos, and something responded.